Hey, Joe, I think Jay's in the attendee list. Oh, there he is.
I just promoted him.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Member Boyarsky.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you as well. Thank you.
All right. And when I give my PowerPoint, I'll share my screen, correct?
Yes, sir. Did you want to try that out?
Let me do that right now, if that's okay.
Yes, please. And good morning, Dr. Smith.
Hi, Jill. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We sure can. You're all set.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back on mute.
Thank you.
Is my PowerPoint visible?
Not quite. We don't see it yet.
Yeah, my screen changed for some reason. There we go. Okay. There we go.
Okay, there it is. Yes, we can sure see it. Do you want to scroll one slide just to make sure?
Yes, thank you. Let me do that.
Yes, perfect. You're all set.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We are now streaming live over the internet. Thank you.
And good morning, Kathy.
Good morning.
Nice to hear from you. You're all set. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good morning, Susan.
Hi, good morning.
We can hear you. Thank you. And Supervisor Lee, would you like to do a mic check?
Yes. Do I sound clear? Good morning.
Loud and clear, sir. Thank you. You're all
Thank
set.
you. Good. Thank you.
Good morning, Reverend Sakamoto.
Good morning. I'm incognito.
Loud and clear. Yes, sir. Thank you. And Dr. Bryant, good morning.
Hello.
We can hear you. Thank you.
Hello, this is Vaughn Villaverde. I'm actually going to be sitting in for Sarita, who's out today.
Okay, one moment. Can you give us your name one more time?
Sure, it's Vaughn, Vaughn.
Okay.
Last name Villaverde, Villaverde.
Thank you very much. We can hear you.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson Chavez.
Hi, Jill. This is Alex, just setting it up for Supervisor Chavez. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Alex. Yes, loud and clear. Thank you. And anyone else who would like to do a mic check right now would be a great time.
This is Kavita. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Dalia Rodriguez, Assistant Sheriff. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sarah, I totally appreciate your mask. That's like getting us going in the right direction.
Yeah, happy Pride.
And Miss Maya, love the backdrop. So we have a big agenda.
Recording in progress.
Today, and lots of report outs. So I'm gonna ask as people come on. We're gonna start calling the meeting to order. I just want to give everybody a minute because I know there are gremlins in our midst. We like to mess around with how we connect. So we'll just give it a few more seconds to get everybody on board. Angelica, congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you move?
I'm very, very excited.
When do you start?
Monday, actually.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to ask if the clerk can call the roll. I'm sorry. First of all, yeah, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and clerk, if the clerk could call the roll, and then we'll go to public comment and our consent calendar.
Sure. We'll start from the back. Richard Conda is absent. Maya Elinati, absent. Mikhail Estrema, absent. Ken Yeager, absent. Nancy Appel,
Here.
absent. Oh,
No,
present.
I'm here. Sorry.
Thank you. William Armeline, absent. Marianne Duan, absent. Ellen Washburn, absent. Fandigo, he said he would be absent, and he was sending Gary Berg as a non-voting representative. Is Gary Berg there?
I am here.
Gary Berg is
Oh,
there.
great. Welcome.
Kavita Nayaran,
Present.
present. Jeffrey Smith,
I'm here, Colin.
present. Molly O'Neill also said she would be absent. David Epps would be attending as a non-voting member. Is David Epps here?
Present.
David Epps is present. Lori Smith, absent. Jay Boyarsky,
I'm present. Good afternoon.
present. Otto Lee,
Present?
present. Co-chairperson Maya Esparza,
Here.
present. And co-chairperson Cindy Chavez,
Here.
present. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're missing 2 members for quorum.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is.
Colin, I just came in. Not sure if you got me.
Oh, Andres.
Yes.
Cero. Great.
Sorry about that.
Here, and I'm part of the quorum.
Oh, great.
Okay, there we go. So we're missing 1.
Excellent.
Did you get Maha El Junaidi? I'm part of the quorum.
Yes, we have 8 currently. We'll need 9 for a quorum.
Great. Okay. Well, that's okay, because I think by the time we get rolling, we'll be good to go. Well, I'm now going to go to public comment, and this is to speak to an item that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of the committee. If I could call on you, and we're going to do 2 minutes on public comment today.
Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, Scott Largent. Sometimes my service gets a little weird right now with the hotspot, so hopefully the last couple of meetings it worked out fine. Also, got the good old background noise of large airplanes flying over. Now, what I'm talking about and discussing today, I was able to get a lot of documents back via subpoena for the Murguia motion for the prosecution out of the city of San Jose and our DA's office. I was able to figure out that the tow companies were committing aggravated perjury. They were supplying falsified documents via subpoena. And what I'm getting at is I always wonder, you hear this in court, that the DA's office is willing to go after these companies and they never do a single thing. I was able to pull a lot of municipal codes talking about who maintains these towing companies, who disciplines them. And who can yank that good old permit from them? Chief Mata. He's the big dog that's in charge. Eddie wouldn't do it because Eddie really didn't care. So I'm kind of starting to put pressure on the chief, the big chief, to do the right thing and to stop Courtesy and Motto's Tow from taking people's vehicles. I've been able to get a massive amount of documents. We can put these two tow companies out of business and we can get the handcuffs on them. And I think that's doing the right thing. And a lot of these people that are on the streets dealt with the same thing with these towing companies. If we started standing up for these people on the street, made them whole again, it wouldn't look like a humanitarian disaster down the road. Okay, the right thing can be done right here. And I'm surprised that documents are being, submitted and they're literally lying. Fake tracking numbers, they're not signing these documents. This is all right in front of your table right now, Chief Mata. You can do the right thing. And I kind of question it. It's time to get off Zoom and it's time to get into the office and it's time to start doing your job, bud. Thank you.
This is the clerk. I just wanted to announce that we do have a quorum now. Well, we have members, William Armeline has just arrived, as well as member Estremera. Thank you very much.
Great.
I'll go back to the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next speaker is Blair Beekman. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak, and the timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for the meeting today. Maybe an idea for a future name of the meeting, anti-discrimination and inclusivity meeting. That's not it, but I know you guys are along that track and I hope that can help. Thank you again for the meeting today. I wanted to offer, that the whole purpose of this meeting process is to figure better bureaucratic practices and better relationships with community. The Surveillance and Technology Ordinance offers some really incredible ideas towards the future of positive sustainability and peace and open democracy that I think can be applicable to many areas of the future of reimagine and equity. And it does some really, really amazing good stuff. And I hope it can help your process at this time. And that I think a thank you is in order to Supervisor Simidian and Mayor Liccardo for wanting to address, the previous past bureaucratic practices of Sheriff Smith. I hope she seems interested in wanting to ask what those bureaucratic questions can be. And it's by doing that it's a portion of larger questions that we're asking all of our local governments to address of themselves at this time. We have to develop some new systems in how we prepare for emergencies and how we just prepare for, what events will be coming up in our future. And as important it is to be talking with Sheriff Smith and the bureaucracy practices of her department at this time, it's important we consider, good bureaucratic new steps for our local governments themselves. And I hope this is a part of the process to do that. So thank you for this meeting today.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you. We're now going to go to the consent calendar, and we have minutes for 3 meetings for March 26th, April 30th, and June 25th. Can I get a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Maya. And a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. With that, I'm going to ask for a roll call.
All right.
I mean, not roll call, but voting. Yeah.
Sure, that will be member Elginaiti.
Yes.
And member Estremera.
Present.
And member Appel.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Member Armeline.
Yes.
And member Narayan.
Yes.
Member Jeff Smith.
Yes.
Member Boyarsky.
Yes.
Member Lee.
Yes.
Co-chairperson Esparza.
Yes.
And co-chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. So now we're digging into the meat of our agenda. And if we could go to item 4. And,
Oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We had a second from a non-voting member. Is there anyone else that would be willing to second the motion? I'm so sorry.
I'll second.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No problem, and thanks for the catch. Okay, so item 4, this is to receive a report from San Jose State University Research Foundation relating to a work plan and timeline for stakeholder groups. The goal of this item is for Dr. Wong to present a brief work plan, timeline, and share how everyone can get engaged in the next step. After the presentation, the task force members can share comments and reactions. But let me just be clear about something. We're not giving direction today for the scope of work. And the reason for that is that that scope was given by the Board of Supervisors. And the reason we're not giving direction, although you can give input, is that the way these are structured are really to have community groups that many members of this board may want to be involved in some of those subgroups. And so we're trying to make sure that they can meet with flexibility and all that. And so we're not trying to Brown Act them. So if we give direction, then they become Brown Acted bodies. So if anybody gets into that area, I will jump in or council will. So with that, I'm very excited to make sure that we can give comments, what kinds of things should be in the work plan. And again, council, if we get off track, Kavita will jump in. I have no doubt. Kavita, you ready for that? All right.
I
Kavita's
am.
ready.
With your perfect introduction, I am.
All right. So if you recall, we discussed briefly at our meeting in June that San Jose State University Research Foundation received a contract to work with our task force as a result of a referral that Supervisor Lee and I put forward. The ask was for professional expertise to coordinate stakeholders with expertise to provide their knowledge, research, analysis, and recommendations relating to hate crimes, hate incidents, climate, and in a manner that can be presented to the task force for consideration. The goal is to have a written report by the end of the year with concrete recommendations for consideration by the task force. So with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Wong, she's going to take it away for us. I think. There she is. All right. Kathy, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
I think my video is also not controlled by me, so I'm trying to.
Oh, can we enable the video
Okay,
for her?
yeah,
Oh,
I
there
just
you
started. Thank you. I was like trying to click on it, it wouldn't respond, so I apologize for that. I'm gonna share my screen, and so hopefully if you can let me know whether you can see the slides. Can you see them?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, great. Really appreciate it. So first of all, I'm Kathy Wong Lau. I have been serving amongst you as an advisory member, and now I won't be an advisory member, but I am the person who is working mainly on this contract. Really grateful for the direction from the co-chairs as well as from members of the county supervisors. So wanted to go over a work plan as contracted with Santa Clara County and want to cover some of the basic timelines. We have a pretty tight timeline, as you know, in terms of the number of meetings that we have. So I just want to review the number of hate crime task force meetings that we have remaining. We certainly have the one today. We have another one on October 22nd. Possibility maybe of having a special meeting in December, maybe in November. I think or maybe there might be a date in November. And then after the final report, of course, is submitted to the county supervisors, then there might be another meeting. So that's the hate crimes task force meetings. We have working group meetings for 6 focused areas, which I will cover in a little bit. But the frequency of the meetings, we're envisioning that the working groups are going to be comprised of relevant stakeholders, community members, and other people, and that there might be members of your communities that you would like and your organizations that you would like appointed to these working meetings. They are not Brown Acted. Oh, sorry, we haven't gone on to the next slide. I thought it had gone on. I apologize. That's a technical problem on my part. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. So these working groups would be groups that are not deliberating, but they're really sorting and summarizing materials for the consideration of the hate crimes task force and advisory members to deliberate on in Brown Acted covered meetings. The frequency of the meetings, we envision there'll be 3 meetings of these SJSU Research Foundation led groups who will work with research associates who will be providing research materials. They'll also solicit links or to resources as well as suggestions for individuals and programs that members of these working groups might recommend. And so there'll be a total of 3 meetings. We anticipate they'll be about an hour and a half long. We will have members of the staff who are in my office and members that are charged with working on the support contact you and contact other people and other community members for the relevant working groups. Next, we're going to go over the 6 working groups. So the 6 working groups that have been recommended are, as seen, legislative policies and advocacy. I'll go over the content of them: gender-based sexual orientation and gender identity-based violence, law enforcement and criminal justice improvements, school-based programs and models, cyber hate prevention and intervention, and then the last one, countywide outreach and education campaigns. So the first one, here's a bullet point summary of what the foci of this group would be: research and assess cultural, local, state, and federal legislation that is specific to the things that we're looking at in terms of hate incidents and hate crimes, and then research and recommend upcoming legislation that the task force in county should support or recommend to the county legislative affairs team for advocacy. If the legislation is already in place, recommend steps for the county to implement it effectively. So this would be very much a legislative and policy focused and trying to gather information on best practices and existing practices that might even some be supported and amped up. Next one is gender-based violence. As hate and sexual orientation, gender-based violence as hate, research gender-based and sexual orientation and gender identity-based violence laws and models in other countries and jurisdictions, and even in other counties. Recommend similar models for Santa Clara County, and then next steps to successfully implement these models and practices to ensure women and trans individual rights and for the protected, as well as how to work with perpetrators following due process, and to ensure, of course, that LGBTQ individuals are protected and due process happens. The next one is law enforcement and criminal justice improvements. This is modifications, recommendations to law enforcement and criminal justice trainings or alternative approaches to handling hate incidents, crimes, and climate. And again, we're not just talking about hate crimes, but also hate incidents and climate issues. Examine the relationship of firearm accessibility to hate crimes and develop recommendations for law enforcement intelligence to combat the illegal gun trade and to monitor the proliferation of hate speech that can be related to these crimes. School-based programs and models. So research and recommend best practices in models in K through 12 schools, whether it is reducing identity-based bullying and hate and other climate issues in schools, as well as in childcare settings. This is included but not limited to prevention programs, after-school programs, mental and behavioral health programs, school curriculum, et cetera. This may include programs for school personnel and parents and families as well. So trying to get a holistic approach to that. Cyber hate prevention and intervention, research the extent of cyber hate in today's climate, recommend legislation models and the means by which hate can be mitigated online towards youth as well as, and adults as well as by them. So it's looking at prevention, looking at the targets, of course, but also looking at people that perpetrate this. Recommend collaboration with law enforcement and partner tech companies in Silicon Valley to address and reduce cyber hate and hate speech. And then the last one is countywide outreach and education programs. And this is the one where we're looking at, what does the research and what are promising practices to really try to enact cultural change and accessibility to for people, for different communities to participate in the outreach and education and informing people on the different efforts of the county to address and reduce hate incidents and improve climate. Also focuses on early alert and awareness programs, maybe, the see something, say something type things. Recommend countywide events and partners and collaborators, as well as ones that are in the private sector, as well as in the nonprofit sector, including schools and other organizations. So that's the overview of the 6 working groups. So the research associates who are faculty from our institution and other institutions will present and review content gathered through research and consultation with experts, as well as with the working
Kathy,
groups.
may I
Oh, yeah.
recommend that this, I don't know if you want to move up to the slide of the working meetings,
I'm so sorry.
if you could go to that one. Next.
This one, sorry.
Perfect. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So what we want to do is to have the research associates present information and review information with the working groups, as well as gather information from members of the working groups to identify gaps or additional content. So they're going to facilitate discussions. There'll also be some staff members that'll facilitate discussions and make sure that we take good notes so that we can figure out what sorts of expertise as well and information might be available through the stakeholders who are in these working groups. The research associates would then carry out and follow up with that feedback. So the research associates will work with the working group to summarize and organize the final presentations for the content from the working groups and background materials to the Hate Crimes Task Force meeting of the Hate Crimes Task Force on October 22nd. So there'll be it'll be comprised of a PowerPoint presentation on the summary of the content and background, and that will be, the timeline needs to be finalized by October 11th so that extensive PowerPoint from the 6 working groups will be put together and then distributed in time so that it's 1 week prior to the Hate Crimes Task Force meeting on the 22nd. So that's the work of the working groups, and that will take place in September, October, and November over 3 1.5-hour meetings. Next, on October 22nd, basically we would be reporting the work of the group. Let's see, sorry about that. We'll see reports from all 6 working groups that will be presented by the research associates and maybe other designated people from the working groups. And then structured feedback will be solicited from the Hate Crimes Task Force voting members and advisory members. And it's really to get substantive input about anything that is missing, as well as working through the materials to structure how the Hate Crimes Task Force will prioritize and give advice about the recommendations. So the tentative structure for the final report draft will be shared, and then input will be solicited from the Hate Crimes Task Force on partners, accountability mechanisms, and other aspects of recommendation analysis. So that will be the work of all of you from the task force. So here's the structure for the report. So part of it is we want to be able to deliver something that is actionable on the part of Santa Clara County supervisors and all of their different programs and staff in terms of carrying out the recommendations. So we certainly will have a background area in terms of the review of data, of existing programs and initiatives and legislation. Much of it will be the summary of a lot of the presentations that have been already presented to the Hate Crimes Task Force in these public meetings. And then there'll be a rank order presentation of recommendations in each of the sections. And for each of the sections, we'll have a description, implementation plan, resources, and then an impact analysis and scope analysis and a cost benefit analysis for each of the recommendations. We also want to identify different levels of implementation depending on resources, opportunities, and constraints, and then an estimated timeline for implementation. The recommendations, hopefully if there are, numerous recommendations from each working group, which we think there will be, that if there's any sort of developmental relationship between the different recommendations, that this report would also recommend an order of implementation or a way in which some things might be implemented simultaneously or in conjunction or in partnership. Certainly want to have recommended partners and advisory mechanisms for accountability. So we want accountability in there that's more than just data, but also public accountability, and then suggested criteria and or measures for assessment. So that'll be an analysis of a utilization of existing assessment measures and data that's already exists, or maybe gaps in data and assessment that need to be undertaken as this initiative moves forward, or the recommended initiative moves forward. So that's a description of how the report, we envision the report would look in terms of structure. And so when we're meeting on October 22nd, some of these, there'll be documents for you to look at and to consider some of these different criteria in the report. So the final Hate Crimes Task Force public meeting, we'd like to have one either in November or December, if we can schedule one, for a final review of the final draft in December, so that we can then the policy writers who will be helping write these drafts can then turn it over, turn it around and submit it to Santa Clara County supervisors. And then next is it's an overall timeline, because I covered a lot of information, but this is the activity, the work plan activity from our meeting right now, clear through December. So that's just an overview and a summary of it.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And if I could get everybody's faces back, and I'm presuming everybody had this presentation in their packets. Is that accurate? So you're able to look at it? Okay. So what I wanted to do was get overall feedback, and any feedback you want to give, this is the time to give it. So let me just start by saying that. But the second is that I'm particularly interested in if these are the right working groups. And I just want to say for all of you, if there are any people that you want to be invited to participate, I'm going to request that we will send out an email to all of you, and we're going to be asking you for volunteers and subject matters. The second thing is, Dahlia, I'm going to mute you. The second, only because I want to make sure sometimes people unmute on accident. I just want to make sure that if your hand's not up, I'm going to assume you did that on accident. So, anyway, so if we could get feedback on the working groups, and if there are folks you want to add, I'm just going to assume you will do that with us through the email. But if there are particular institutions you want to make sure included, let's talk about those out loud, because I want to make sure that the working groups have a chance to do recruitment on their own if they're able to do that. So I'm going to start with Greg, and then I'll go to Maha. Greg, you're on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
Several suggestions. One is I would hope the recommendations could be addressed to things that are actionable, not simply by the Board of Supervisors, but also by the law enforcement agencies. Secondly, as far as special focus, ever since Attorney General Lockyer's Civil Rights Commission on Hate Crimes did their report, it's been clear that the two most underreported categories of hate crimes are anti-gender and anti-disability hate crimes. When the commission did its report, they were speaking, I think, entirely about anti-female, but it's also true of anti-transgender women hate crimes being very underreported, and anti-disability hate crimes are extremely underreported nationwide. I don't know in particular about Santa Clara County, but given the lack of reports on that from the law enforcement agencies, I'd say they're extremely underreported too. And those are two areas, and there may be other categories of hate crimes that I'm not so aware of that do need special attention. And so I'm glad to see the gender section. I'm sorry not to see any special focus on disability.
Thank you, Greg. Maha?
I had a question about how these 6 groups were determined. What process was used to determine that we would have these 6 groups? And I remember us, I proposed that the groups might be response, reporting, prevention, and policy, which is usually how experts address hate crimes. And those 4 buckets then could deal across different institutions. For example, we're only focusing on education and law enforcement, but much of the discrimination that happens against Muslims and Arabs is in corporations, is in healthcare delivery, but yet we're just focusing on law enforcement, which is incredibly important, but more important for certain groups than others. The workplace, healthcare delivery, which is extremely important for my community, for example, and the Arab community as well. And then sort of consistent with what Greg just brought up about, communities that we should be looking at. I mean, look at the hate crime data against Jews and Muslims, and Sikhs. Shouldn't we have a group on them? I don't recommend that we do that. I think that we should deal with response, reporting, prevention, and policy, and then cut across all of these different institutions as opposed to doing what we're doing. So I wanted to know what the mechanism was for choosing. Unless I missed an email, I might have. Forgive me if I did, or maybe a series of emails that asked my feedback on these groups, because I would have mentioned it a lot earlier than now, Cindy. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Kathy, I'll let you maybe take first stab at that, so to speak.
Sure. I want to share a slide that I think I might have skipped over, so I apologize for that. I did. So can you all see? I don't know if you can see this. All right. Can you see this now?
Yes.
Okay. So the working groups are going to be guided. That's actually a pretty important slide. I'm sorry I skipped it. I must have jumped over it when I was clicking. So, but it really looks at, these are sort of the assumptions that are going to be facilitated in each of the working groups. And that is an understanding of intersectionality and how the impact of bias, oppression, exclusion, and hate is experienced by people with multiple identities and also in multiple settings. And so examples are, Black women experiencing hate and discrimination within the healthcare setting, BIPOC queer individuals experiencing hate in work settings with BIPOC organizations, within BIPOC organizations, and BIPOC disabled individuals rendered invisible in disability services, anti-hate campaigns, or resource information. And so one of the I think the difficulties of doing this work is that, I think, just as Maha said and Greg has said, is that we could have working groups that break out into all of the different groups, which we would have an infinite number of groups that we should have, and we could do it by overarching, here's a definition of the problem, here are some guiding principles and policies and other things. And I think that the way that these 6 working groups are broken down is so that people can look at how some of the work is organized or not really organized, maybe not done very well, but out there in the community and out in organizations. So I think that the 6th working group actually looks at partnering with all different sectors of the economy as well as nonprofit world, in terms of looking also at communities. So that's kind of my response, and I apologize for skipping this slide.
And one thing I'll just add is that that's partly what we want feedback on today. So Maha, you didn't miss a memo. It was really that's part of what we're talking about today. So thanks. I always want to know what I missed in my inbox. So there you go. Thank you for that. And then Michelle, and then Susan.
And I will go back.
Hi everybody. So I kind of want to echo the point that Greg brought up and then Maha brought up regarding the burden on those communities most at risk. To sit on, because as a disabled person, it's a very dynamic, very diverse group. So when we are asked to give feedback, if we only, and I am one of 2 representatives here that represent kind of the disability community. So as such, there's this, disabled people are rendered invisible in all of society, including government meetings, including quote unquote leadership groups, where we are disinvited by the lack of access to those meetings. That is a passive form of hate that builds to a hate crime as we see them underreported, under acknowledged under everything else. So my struggle is not necessarily with the structure as it exists. The struggle is more that the burden that that places on Muslim people, on Jewish people, on disabled people, you know, to have to sit in every single group or give feedback in every single working group. That's, what is it, 6 groups times 3, that would be 18 meetings in the course of 3 months. So I'm just questioning that framing and whether it would be wise to maybe have affinity groups that are seated, that you can then gain that feedback from the reports that we do generate to kind of identify those gaps and those missing pieces. So that's my comment.
Thanks, Michelle. I want to give a perspective on that. One is that I think the goal is not to have the same person at every meeting, but really to really pull in a base of people that can participate. And I know you've been really, Michelle, amazing with us about helping us do that. I think the second point that I just want to raise is that there's enough revenue and enough resource in this contract to make sure that every meeting is uber accessible. And Kathy, we would just recommend working with Michelle, and we have somebody in our office who's just become not an expert. We're still learning. As Michelle tells me, every time I feel like we're on top of it, like we figured it out, I get a text or a chat from her saying, here's what you left out. So, which is great. Actually, we're all going to get better at it. What I would just recommend that Kathy, your team think about is whether or not what we want to add on to these are a few listening sessions based on the affinity groups that Michelle's called out, and actually that Maha raised and others have raised, because I do, and what I would say to all of you who are on this meeting, if there is an affinity group that you think we ought to be having a conversation with, we should just do that during the course of this time. And I would also say, not only for Kathy and the contractors, but if there are some of you who would like to be part of the listening sessions as members of this board, I would really appreciate it. So if you could volunteer to be in the listening session, you send Kathy Trong an email, and if there's a group you want to recommend, send that to Kathy as well, and we'll share that with Kathy Trong, and we can share that with my office, can share that with Kathy. And then Kathy,
Can I just say that we do have, as part of our budget, it's not very extensive, but some nominal monies to compensate people for participating in focus groups with members of the working group. So even if all the members of the working group can't make it, we can organize those focus groups. We left it in there because we needed some input on how to organize those. And so I think that what's been brought up at this meeting would be a great way to organize some of those working groups, maybe by affinity groups. But then that information will be collected, and those careful questions from each of the working groups could also be fielded, as well as have substantive input from the focus groups back to the working groups.
Thanks, Kathy. Susan?
Oh.
I'm going to go to Susan Hayes, and then I'll come back to you, Anna, and then to Maha.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is Susan Hayasa with San Jose Nikkei Resistors. And I guess my question is, I'm looking at the 6 categories. I was struggling to figure out how the concerns of our organization and the Japanese American community and the Japantown community would fit into that. We've been looking at the underlying causes of incidents in Japantown, and we are really concerned with several things. One, the underlying causes, we want to decriminalize the people who are committing the incidents in Japantown, because we think the underlying causes are people being unhoused and people having unaddressed mental injury, and the stress of living in this kind of a situation. And in addition, the political demonization of Asians and stuff like that. But all of those things create a situation that should be addressed, we think, by supporting communities in helping to figure out what's going on in their community, helping communities organize to understand the underlying causes in their particular community, and then to also help the communities help each other to decriminalize this and start looking at the underlying causes, and to help connect people with the appropriate and meaningful county services. Because I think that I think when the county funds services, to deliver services to people in need. There's obviously an obligation to make sure that it connects, but I think there's the missing part is to organize the communities to help that happen. And so I wasn't exactly sure how to relate to those 6 categories and how our organization would fit into that.
So Susan, what I'm going to recommend is that, thank you for the feedback. And I'm going to recommend that also be considered as part of the affinity work, and because I do think the point you're raising is interesting on a lot of levels. But I would say that could both fit under item 3, because it doesn't have to be about, which is the law enforcement and criminal justice improvements, but also I think the item 6, which is the countywide kind of outreach education, because in order to do that, you actually have to get to the root cause issue that you're talking about. And then also through the affinity groups and listening. I think those are really, really great points. Thank you. Anna, and then I'll come back to Maha.
Oh, thank you, Supervisor Chavez. Although I was eating a cherry when my hand accidentally went up, so apologies for that. I don't have anything.
Oh, sorry about that. Maha, thank you.
So Susan's point that she just brought up would be under the bucket of response to hate crimes, right? I honestly still am a little confused. I'm not logically seeing the choice of these 6. It seems like, okay, we've chosen 2 institutions that we're going to focus on. Now, it may be, Cindy, that you and Maya thought that those organizations we can probably impact, but not others. I don't know if that was the case or not, but we chose police and we chose education, and then we have affinity groups, sort of, and then we have the community. So we have 2 affinity groups. I wish I could see the slide again. I don't have my notes in front of me, but it's 2 affinity groups, 2 institutions that we're focusing on. Then we have community, and then we have something else. Wouldn't it be better if we had just 4, responding to hate, reporting, which is a huge problem, people are not reporting, preventing, and then policy, right? And then having all of the affinity groups join these 4 groups, because they have issues with all of these four groups. I mean, I would know my place immediately. It would be in prevention, because I do a lot of education, intercultural engagement, yada, yada. I don't work on policy. I don't do reporting, and I do very little response. But wouldn't these 4 be better? That to me makes more sense. And anytime that I've done any hate crimes work at the city, at the state, and at the county level, it's always been sort of looking at it from this perspective. I don't understand the logic of what you are presenting today.
Thank
and
you.
so if you want me to vote on it, I would not. I mean,
yeah, we're not voting on this today. So
Okay.
let me just explain why this is framed the way it is. When we put the task force together, which was many, many moons ago now, part of what we embedded into the task force was in the bylaws were these working groups. And that was really rooted in the call to action that Councilmember Esparza and I brought forward, in part based on the feedback we'd gotten up to that point. So the reason it's structured this way is that this was the initial outreach that was done by both Councilmember Esparza and I. And by the way, that outreach went on for a year, actually, because the trigger for this, just again as a reminder, was the Gilroy shootings actually was what prompted Maya and I to be like, oh my gosh, like we've got to get into action. So anyway, we literally had almost 100 discussions with people to get to the bylaws that we set up to invite all of you. And so I think the point you're raising, what's valid about that point is that you're really saying to us, make sure that we're addressing issues in this particular way. We're coming at it in a way that I know is unfamiliar and uncomfortable for you. I would say to Kathy and to our contractors to make sure that each of these working groups has the framework that you're laying out, I think is the way that I would try to meet the benchmark that you're setting for us, along with the feedback that we got prior to the committee being started. So you know, so anyway, that's why we are where we are. It wasn't, this actually wasn't Kathy's design. It was the community gave us feedback, and that's what we used to start the commission.
Yeah, I'm just looking at effectiveness. We're going to cover, I feel, a lot more when we approach it this way, instead of identifying very specific affinity groups and leaving the rest out. And then just focusing on specific institutions and leaving the rest out. The problem is far bigger than law enforcement and education.
Yeah, I appreciate the point you're raising. I do. And I think that we've heard that, and I think we can work with the framework we have and, you know, on the back end, look at design. But I appreciate that we're not in agreement right now about the approach. Thank you. Greg, and then Reverend Sakamoto.
I had a couple of points to add. One is you mentioned about the wanting to avoid the Brown Act, and I appreciate there's a lot of notification reference to the Brown Act, but we have the Brown Act for a reason, so that the public can participate. And I would just urge that even if you're not following the specifics of the Brown Act, that all the meetings be announced and open. Secondly, there's Stanford Law and the Brennan Center a few months ago put out a really good report about alternatives to law enforcement actions. And it's the kind of careful report that you would expect from those two universities. I think some or all of the working groups should look at it. It's good in that if there's anybody who thinks this is only a law enforcement problem and the answer is to lock them up and throw away the key, this will certainly shoot that down. On the other hand, if there's anybody who thinks that law enforcement should be left out, this will shoot that down too. And there's a lot of very good information on specifics. And then finally, listening to Maha, I tend to agree. I think, but when we talk about reporting, we're not only talking about the community or victims not reporting, we're also talking about law enforcement not recognizing a hate crime when they see one. This is particularly, I know this is very, very, very true in the disability community, that law enforcement, you look at the official statistics and there actually are no anti-disability hate crimes because they never get reported because law enforcement doesn't recognize them. Even often the victims don't recognize them as hate crimes.
Thank you, Greg. And I think the point you raised is that the Brown Act, I think you're right. We will make sure these are publicly, that public is invited to all of them. It really had more to do with not worrying about quorum or other things so that folks could participate more robustly. Reverend Sakamoto, you will have the last word on this item, and then I don't see any public speakers. So we have two more items we want to make sure we can cover today.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of reinforce what I heard from Susan and from Maha, that our response is important, but we also need to look at underlying causes. And those underlying causes have been so integrated into our society that we kind of overlook them and take it as part of, well, things are like that. And so that's why we have these problems. But unless we really, and it takes a real large effort, I think, to address those issues. I don't know if we can even handle it on a county level. These are things like being unhoused, but unemployment, the insecurity I think that people feel in their lives, politics, all of that has a way of playing into those insecurities and how we respond to one another as human beings. I think we're much more generous when we feel secure. Often it seems to be the case, but I know that even in those times when we are uncertain, we can respond humanely, treat one another as human beings. And I think that kind of that larger issue, I don't know if this body is able to really address that, but I think
we are. We have people in the room that can.
Yeah, it's a larger, deeper issue that I think we all need to kind of identify and make a part of our discussion as we address the issues. I mean, it's like this Palo Alto, the restaurant the other day reported that, customer came in, was unhappy, she couldn't pay cash, and so started to talk to the the owner of the shop and the workers in the shop saying, where do you come from and why don't you go back? And those kinds of things that, it's not so clear, but it is there. It's a part of our society. It's part of our culture. And we need to address those issues. And I think to begin to identify each other as human beings is important work that needs to be done. But thank you. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, your reverends are used to their soapboxes. We appreciate it. I'm gonna wrap this part up and just say that, we heard all your feedback. We can't give direction today, as I just explained that council gave us, but I know that Kathy and her team have heard your feedback, and certainly myself and my team have as well, and certainly Maya's and her team. And so we will follow up. And I do just want to remind people, if there is a committee that you most want to be on, or you have folks that you want to make sure are included, that we really want to make sure that we get that information. And if any of you would like to be part of the listening that we do with communities, I'd also like to see who would volunteer for that. And that's for everybody on the commission, whether you're a voting member or not. We would really appreciate having your leadership involved in that. So thank you. We're going to move on now to item 5, and this is the Office of the Sheriff Proposed Hate Crime Unit. This was a follow-up to a request from Supervisor Lee at the May 4th Board of Supervisor meeting. So I wanted to see, Otto, if there's anything you would like to say to get us started before we turn this over to the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Chair Chavez, Cindy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this was the referral that we came out back in, I believe, March and April timeframe after the fact that we have so many of the AAPI hate incidents that has been locked in. Certainly, those numbers has not really gone down much at all. If anything, we're still seeing it pretty consistently up there. So I think this is so important why we need this this referral to work with our sheriff's office and law enforcement to make sure that the position that we are going to have a bit more of a focus on the issues, both in educating our sheriffs on what the law is and how to make sure that we could also educate the public what type of rights they have as well. The Clara agency protocol, so to identify reporting these hate crimes is certainly something that's really important, and that's the reason why we are doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just ask who's presenting on this item from the Sheriff's Office? Dahlia, all right.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Chavez and Supervisor Utterly, members of the task force. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon. Let me first apologize for the earlier issue that we had with our volume or our mic. It was unintended, so my apologies to everyone. I have Lieutenant Suhei, who will be presenting today. Suhei Jaimes, and she'll presenting on the hate crimes unit and how we utilize our unit to investigate hate crimes in our jurisdiction. So without any further ado, Lieutenant Jaimes.
Hi, good afternoon.
Welcome.
I'll try to see if we can share our screen right now.
Perfect, yeah.
All right, just new share?
Yeah, just put it slideshow.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, wait a minute, let me view this
Slideshow.
Okay, so again, my name is Suhei Jaimes. I'm a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, give you just an idea of what the statistics have been within our county. Earlier this year, the DA's office had presented information on cases that had been submitted to them and cases that they had actually filed on. This was actually in February 26th of 2021. And just to give you an idea, without necessarily going into all the 5 years, In 2016, they received 4 cases and they filed on 2. And in 2020, they received 17 cases and filed on 14. So that's the cases where they have received from different agencies in our county. And that would be with identified suspects. So that does not count the unreported cases. That does not count the cases that were reported and the agencies couldn't locate a suspect. I can tell you that for our agency, we have received cases based on, that range from derogatory racial epithets to assaults that are based on race and gender. So far this year, we've had 2 cases that came out of our transit system, and 1 case that came out of Cupertino. So again, this is just for cases that are reported and does not include the ones that are not reported to law enforcement. As far as what happens when we receive a report, if it's the call comes in, it's reported, and then it's followed up by our detectives or patrol on the day of. So if we have an identified suspect, we actually file it with the DA's office for charges. There's those cases that we do not have an actual suspect, so we'll do track flyers. We try to identify who the person is, try to do the most that we can. Currently, we do not have a designated person, meaning a dedicated person. I apologize. What happens if a hate crime case comes through, it's assigned to our detective sergeant who is in the major crimes area. And he also will handle various cases involving major homicides, attempted homicides, assault with a deadly weapon, cases like that. So unfortunately, it's more of just a reactive type of approach that we currently have when it comes down to investigating hate crimes. If we were to actually dedicate personnel and create a hate crimes unit, we would have the ability to do a lot more than just take a report and investigate it the way that we currently do. And this would also hopefully address the issue with underreporting that we all seem to be in agreement of, that there's a lot of that. So what we would end up doing with the hate crimes unit would be we would be able to fully investigate the case. The assigned dedicated deputies would receive additional training that would be very specific to these particular crimes. They would be able to focus, connect with the community, and hopefully address the underreporting. They would be able to participate in community events, do a lot more community outreach, inform the community as to how to report it, how to identify whether or not it's a hate crime incident or a hate crime, and what they can do in order to actually address the issue. And it would also, as far as being able to have a dedicated unit, it would also help out with being able to provide guidance and connect those victims to a lot more resources once the case comes through. A lot of times victims don't know what the legal process is like, and that's usually why they fail to report stuff. Be it, if it's fear from, in general, of what their idea is of law enforcement, or whether it's just fear of the unknown. Having a unit would actually be able to address those issues and be able to guide the people and tell them, what the process is really like. And it's easier to just have one person to actually be able to for the person to come and to ask and to have a dedicated avenue. So traditionally, this also could help out with having this unit provide additional training to all the law enforcement officers. We have training days, and sometimes it's easier to also go out during training days, do presentations, and share additional information of what they've learned by being out in the community, and what helps and what works and what doesn't work. So And the biggest thing to remember is we do know that with hate crimes, it's although it might be one victim, it does affect a large group of people, which is why it's really important to have the ability to have the resources available so that deputies can go out and talk to the community and not just deal with that one particular victim. So they could, potentially help that person with resources and going through the system. But it really comes down to being able to go back to the community and show the community this is what law enforcement with nonprofits, with all the resources, with the DA's office, this is what we can all do when we come together. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer right now?
Thank you. I'm going to ask if we can get the screen back so I can see everyone. And I do have a couple hands raised. So I'm going to see first if there's anybody from the public who wanted to comment on this.
We have no request to speak. Oh, we do have a request to speak.
Thank you. We'll do 2 minutes and
All
then
right,
we'll
our
come back
next-
to the task force.
Thank you. Our next speaker is B. Beekman. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for noticing my hand. To quickly offer again, kind of from the last item and to bring it into this item, my words in the public comment, anti-discrimination and inclusivity as a name for a future process. I'm hopeful about the words inclusivity to talk about a committee process. To again offer part of the reasons why I like inclusivity so much is that, after the January 6th incidents, as uncomfortable as they were, I think we are trying to find ways to be more honest and direct with that sort of group. And I think it's really important as city governments, local governments, to learn how to do that. Because as they learn how to do that, I think it would just naturally calm them down. And they would hear what can be exactly the good work that we're trying to do. And they don't quite understand that yet. And we have to develop those skills. So good luck how to do that, how to learn to talk more honestly and directly about the good practices we're trying to do. About the, there's going to be FBI coming around to deal with sheriff issues coming up soon. Are they going to be addressing these anti-hate issues and just overall bureaucratic practices we're going through? And how can that be related to this committee group and this task force group and the work we'll be doing? I hope that can be an important component and the FBI isn't just secretly working off to the side and we slowly get information from them. How can they become inclusive in this process of rebuilding our community? And I think it's open democracy practices that surveillance and technology ordinance ideas can really help lead the way in the next decade. Thank you.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Oops, thank you. I'm going to go to Greg and then to Samina.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. Does the sheriff's office utilize the supplemental report forms that some agencies do and that the audit a couple of years ago recommended? The big advantage of those is that the responding officer conducts the initial investigation, talking to the witnesses who are already there on the scene. And I know the LAPD in particular has found that this saves them just uncounted hours of then a detective or someone going back to and trying to find all the witnesses sometime later, and results in many more referrals to the DA's office. That's the first question. The second is a more general one. Do you know the sheriff's response to the recommendations of the Board of Supervisors resolution that originated with this task force about adopting training and adopting the post-model policy?
Thank you very much for the question. We just sent, sorry, let me rephrase that. We have sent out training bulletins for all our staff in regards to completing the form. That form was sent out in 2019. Previously, we did have our own internal documentation with a report writing system where we actually document whether the incident is hate crime. But we are training all our staff to utilize the form. In regards to, and that was a lot of questions, by the way. The second part of your question, can you repeat that for me, please?
Yes, the Board of Supervisors made recommendations to all the law enforcement agencies in the county, based on a recommendation that the board got from this commission. And I wonder if you know the sheriff's response to those recommendations.
Right. So
Greg, could you say, pardon me one moment, Greg, could you say which recommendation? There are a few that have come out already, unless you know already, Dahlia.
I was referring to all of the recommendations in the resolution. The main ones were that every agency adopt the post model policy, and that every agency train all its officers using the post training. And I should add, I suppose, do you know the sheriff's response to the recommendations from the Attorney General of a couple of weeks ago?
Okay, Dahlia, could you hear all that?
Right. So in regards to the recommendations for the training on post, we are a post certified agency. And as such, we actually have certain things that we need to complete. One of them is the 25-hour mandatory post training for all new recruits in the academy, as well as a visit to the Museum of Tolerance. We also do training bulletins for all of our staff to kind of keep them updated with all additional mandates and changes as to they come with as they happen with the law. And we are going to be doing the new post training that just came out this year for hate crime specific. Hopefully that answers your question.
How about the model policy, the post model policy?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
What's the sheriff's response, to the recommendation that the law enforcement adopt the post model hate crimes policy?
The sheriff is not here right now, but we, as a post agency, we always have to adopt the policies recommended by post. And that is something that we'll be talking to training about to make sure that we are following those recommendations.
And the Attorney General's recommendations?
I'm not familiar with the Attorney General recommendations. Can you repeat that?
And Greg, why don't we do this? Let's let the staff. Oh, go ahead, Dahlia. You know.
So the part of the recommendation is basically that it's part of the documentation that we did for our training bulletin that we sent out in August, which basically talks about all the different changes that are happening with hate crimes and the training that is going to be upcoming in the next year or so. So we did adopt all those changes. Those are all in our training bulletin. I'm sorry, it was a little bit difficult to understand the question in the beginning.
All right, thank you, Greg. We'll go to Samina.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for your presentation today. You had mentioned that one of the components is about doing outreach in the community and, having officers come out for events as well. And I think I hope that the department is being mindful that many communities might not feel very comfortable about having that type of outreach or having them come out for events, especially in light of, let me give you an example with the Muslim community having members of the FBI come out to the community and doing presentations in terms of outreach and trying to work with the community. And we find out through the ACLU research that it was actually, this outreach was conducted in order to do surveillance on the community. So I just want folks to keep that in mind, that is what, especially for the Muslim community, that might be the response to that.
Thank you, Samira. Michelle?
Hi. So I wanted to clarify the report some. At the very beginning, you stated that the report, hate crimes that have been reported in Santa Clara County were inclusionary of only gender and race. So my question to you is what statistics, why wasn't disability included in that? Because I believe that there was an earlier report that we had from your office that did include, or from the DA's office that did include disability as a hate crime. When a hate crime is not on the radar in any way, shape, or form, it means that it of course is going to be underrepresented. The other question I have, to kind of not to your report, but in general, is pertaining to funding an office within a hate crimes unit within the police department. Does that really meet the community needs, or would it be a better model to establish a community-based, community organization-based hate crimes task force that can deal with it on more of a universal and more inclusive life reality level? That's it.
Hi, to answer your first question, the information that I shared as far as from derogatory racial epithets and the assaults based on race and gender, that's only, I was only speaking really for this year for our agency. I wasn't speaking for the last 5 years from the data that had been presented from the DA's office. I don't know what all those cases from their office that were filed on or received, what they included. But as far as the second portion where I did mention about the racial and gender based hate crimes, that was just for this year, 2021, for the sheriff's office.
In regards to your second question, I believe that in any community, it's always great to have community resources available to the community members, specifically when it deals with, situations like this, when we're talking about hate crimes. However, we will always need to have a law enforcement perspective when we're trying to actively investigate these crimes, because we do need to present the investigation to the district attorney's office. But I do agree with you that having the resources available to the community to provide resources and to provide guidance and support is always a necessity within any community.
So thank you. I want to thank staff, and what I would like to recommend, Otto, I'm going to come back to you in just a minute, but what I wanted to recommend is perhaps we hear item 6, and this is the same subject matter, but from the perspective of the district attorney's office, and that may allow for some next steps to be a little more connected. Is that all right, Supervisor Lee? Yeah, okay, great. And with my colleagues, everybody's good with us moving that way? All right. So perhaps Jay, if you want to introduce this item, and this is let me just as a reminder, this is in response to Supervisor Lee's request from the May 4th and June 22nd board meeting regarding the hate crimes reporting structure and training for sworn officers. And Otto, do you want to add anything else to this to get us started?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Chavez. The issue is that basically, besides the sheriff's office, obviously, from the law enforcement point of view, the district attorney's office is extremely crucial in making sure that these cases do get properly categorized between incidents and crime, and actually do take the action to prosecute. And in this case, I do believe that the improving of the hate crimes reporting is another area that I think could be very helpful. So looking at the reporting situation, we've seen other areas like in Los Angeles County, they have a LA versus hate campaign on how to report an incident, and there's multilingual language reporting that's been developed in the www.hatecrimebook.com. So I would like to just also share that these are some resources that other counties have done. Many of you have known I'm have no shame of copying good ideas from other jurisdictions. So I just want to bring that up as a potential things that we should consider adopting locally as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Jay, can I turn this to you?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor. Can you see my screen and hear me all right?
We can hear you, but I cannot see your screen.
I've selected share screen.
I'm so sorry. I'm the least technical person ever. All I can say is good for you.
Yeah.
I have no impact at all on the. There you go. We can actually see your screen now. Thanks.
Is it a picture of me and is it the PowerPoint you can see?
It's the PowerPoint. It's not you on vacation or anything. No, it's good.
Very good. All right, thank you. It's good to be here with all of you and Supervisor Chavez and Councilmember Esparza. Thank you so much again for your leadership on this issue. And Supervisor Lee, thank you for the request for this report. So as some of you know, I've been a prosecutor for about 27 years. And one reason I became a prosecutor is my passion for prosecuting hate crimes and trying to reduce hate crimes in the community. And I'm very pleased that in my capacity as Chief Assistant DA, I work very closely with Deputy DA Erin West, who's been attending these meetings and is attending today. And she is the operational lead for all hate crimes investigations that come into the DA's office. Can you see the next slide?
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you for your help there. So when we get a hate crime, it comes in. I'm usually alerted to it, but Erin West is always alerted to it. She reviews the cases with another supervising deputy DA, whose name is Daniel Okonkwo, who oversees our issuing unit. And she is an expert in a subject matter expert in hate crimes. She reviews the police reports to see whether charges can be filed, if so, which charges can be filed, or whether follow-up investigation is needed. I'll note that one of my predecessor chief assistants here, Karen Sinanu-Towery, literally wrote the book on hate crimes prosecution. She wrote a monograph called Hate Crimes for the California District Attorneys Association. And it's the book that's used by every DA's office in the state of California for the prosecution of hate crimes. And we take a great deal of pride in that fact. Once a charging decision is made and once follow-up investigation is made, the cases are assigned to a deputy district attorney as a special study. Unlike the majority of the 30,000 cases that we prosecute in the district attorney's office, hate crimes are specially assigned to one district attorney for all purposes from the beginning to the end. That's typically only done with homicide cases, sexual assault cases, and other very complicated serious cases, but every single hate crime case, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor, is assigned a special study status, and it's handled by one prosecutor. Ms. West also compiles the annual report for the State Department of Justice. You may remember a few months ago, we made a presentation where we talked about those statistics. And fortunately now reporting laws are more widespread. We've been filing those reports for many, many years, but I'm informed that there are even some counties in California that haven't really been complying with the requirement to prepare reports, but we have those reports available. The Police Officer Standards and Training Commission established a model hate crime policy in 2019, and POST offers a learning portal course called Hate Crimes Identification and Investigation. And I hope that this is responsive to Supervisor Lee's request. We don't oversee POST. We have influence with POST, particularly because of our subject matter expertise. We have helped teach POST classes, and we are very open to designing new and improved POST classes. The influence that we have in the district attorney's office is our partnership with the law enforcement agencies that starts with the Police Chiefs Association. And I know several of you have presented to meetings of the Police Chiefs Association. The district attorney, Jeff Rosen, is a member of that group. Chief Berg is here from Campbell today. He of course is part of that committee. I'm proud to say that for a long time, this county has staked out a leadership position. We've had a hate crimes protocol long before any other counties had a hate crimes protocol. Our police chiefs put down in writing exactly how serious they would take allegations of hate crimes, how they would be investigated, and how they would be referred to our office. And that remains the case. There was the referral asked about what sort of toolkit or best practices is available. And without getting too far into the weeds, what I envision as a toolkit is the materials that we use, for example, when there's a news release that one agency puts out, it should be shared with all the other agencies. So when they have a hate crime, they know what sort of public outreach is best to do. That's something like that is handled exclusively by the law enforcement agency where the crime was occurred. And I'm sure everybody on the call knows there are 13 major law enforcement agencies in the county. Today we've heard from the sheriff, but the really the big dog in this is San Jose PD in terms of population. And the vast majority of the county is covered by all the other law enforcement agencies, from Palo Alto in the north to Gilroy in the south, Milpitas in the east, Los Gatos in the west, and all the other agencies. So the toolkit would include things like the public safety announcement, the public service announcement that we shared a few months ago. It would be the trainings that DA West provides when she goes out to the different agencies, making sure that when there's an incident, they reach out to us so that we can help them obtain search warrants or subpoenas for additional evidence. And a toolkit would help us publicize the different elements of all these policies. I'd like to end with a suggestion. It's not a formal request at this point in time, but I'm sure many people on this call remember that there was something called the Network for a Hate-Free Community. It was overseen by a magnificent woman named Delorme McKee Stovall. For those of you who don't remember Delorme, she was, just imagine sort of a cross between Maya Angelou and Oprah Winfrey. And that's how I would describe Delorme. And I believe that Maribel Martinez, who currently works for the county, was Delorme's supervisor at some point in time. And we did some research about when the network started. It was back about 21 years ago in 2000. And then supervisors Cortese and Chavez made some budget requests back in 2014. And then it sort of fell by the wayside as other agencies were developed within the county. It would be wonderful if there was, if the network could be reconstituted in some way. And what the network did, it was really an ongoing working group that was centered by a paid staff person employed by the county. And she had regular meetings. They were more often than quarterly, but they typically weren't monthly, depending on the needs of the community. And they were attended by members of law enforcement agencies, particularly if there was hate incident activity occurring in that particular city. Community-based organizations regularly attended. And depending on what was sort of happening in the community, you might have representatives choosing to attend. Everybody was welcome to attend at any time, but in any given time, certain religious groups, community organizations would attend these meetings. For example, there was a time when members of the Church of Scientology were experiencing hate incidents, and they were frequently attending network meetings. Had the network been constituted over the last year and a half, I know that Nikkei Resistors and the Asian Law Alliance, would have been regularly attending these meetings. And so I just throw that out as a suggestion. There's people in the county who know more about why it fell by the wayside than I do. but we have done something like ongoing working groups in the past. So I just wanted to mention that. And that concludes my presentation in response to Supervisor Lee's request. I'm happy to address any other issues or answer any other questions that anyone may have.
Thank you. I'm going to take the comment from the public and then I'll come back to the committee. I'll start with Supervisor Lee and then go to Maha.
Sure. The next speaker is B. Beekman. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for that report. I wanted to.
A lot of people don't want to go on lists anymore. A lot of
Hello. Someone needs to mute.
Yes, thank you.
Can I have my time back, please?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, you did that. Thank you. Blair Beekman here. Yeah, it was a very nice report. Thank you. To try to add to that report in some way, you know, it's the ideas of you know, 6 months ago, we were making a very big deal to not say the words reimagine and equity too often, and to say that we have our good standard practices and we know what to do and we're already doing those things. We're realizing that, you know, there's a lot of good work behind reimagine and equity ideas that we just have to start to make them a part of our regular vocabulary and how we're moving forward with our lives and our future, and how we're going to develop our future together. So as much as I mentioned the good ideas of open democratic practices, you know, it needs the help of reimagine and equity ideas at this time. I think it's a great combination for our future and offers a lot of hope. And it's with that in mind that is law enforcement getting that message at this time? I think they can give it a certain amount of lip service, but I think they're a bit locked up in, you know, we have our standard ways of working and don't bother me now with that small child, you know, kind of thinking. These are really important practices we're developing for our future right now. We all have to make the efforts, as much as, you know, we're respecting our police, that we're developing important new ways to work. And it's important that we have a kind of a creative outlook in how to consider these practices. And I hope the police can be on board, law enforcement can be on board with these ideas. What's developing at this time? Oakland and San Jose, the past few months, have started some very interesting ideas of reimagine. It's going to be good examples for all of us. Thank you for your time and to our efforts through this fall. Thanks.
And that concludes our request to speak.
I appreciate it, Colin. I'm going to come back. Otto, did you want to go ahead and start?
Yes, thank you, Cindy. So thanks for the great presentation from our assistant DA, or actually the deputy chief DA. I'm not very clear of your title. I just know you're the number 2 over there at the DA's office, Jay. Thank you very much for your great presentation, as always. I want to follow up on this recommendation you just talked about regarding this network, having the county with the staff member doing the convening of having the various community members talking and with building connections between the communities, you say targeted by the hate crime, along with the law enforcement agencies. On that one, maybe I could ask Dr. Smith, if you're here on, if we recall these, this is certainly before my time on the board, would like to get a little history, if you might remember how that went and whether or not this is something we could consider reconstituting.
I don't think there was a specific action decided to eliminate the committee. I think we can certainly reactivate.
And the individuals that was mentioned, I was not familiar with those names. Are those still currently working in the county? And
No.
No.
I think one thing, just from a historical perspective, Supervisor Lee, I think there was also, as the offices were being restructured under the new Department of Social Justice, or the Office of Social Justice and Equity, that the that structure, interestingly, that structure restructured who was doing what. And one reason that Supervisor Cortese and I did a referral, it was actually right around 2017 or 18, we did a referral on just frankly, and Jay, good recall to remember that, but was to take a look at the network as a viable option for us to start working on right away was in 2017, 18. And I just think the referral didn't come back to the board for some reason, and we'll take a look and figure out what happened there. But I think, again, one thing I would just say is the staff, you know, and we should get committee feedback on this too. So I'll go to the committee. The only point I wanted to make is that I also think that we didn't have that department when the hate-free network for hate-free communities was in existence. So, you know, it's an interesting opportunity because now we've got a whole team of people that represent really diverse parts of the community. It's kind of a different day. Maha?
Yeah. So thank you, Jay, for your presentation. So I was a member of the Network for a Hate-Free Community, and Delorme is a good friend of mine. And I've been on many of these hate crime networks, the Bay Area Hate Crimes Investigators Association in San Francisco, and almost every county had them. They worked for their time when we were just when we were just talking about hate crimes, when it was a new thing. I'm not sure that they're effective today, and I will tell you why. I'm in and out of police departments, and we do cultural competency education on the Muslim American community, and part of that training, it's 2 to 8 hours, depending on how much time we're given, and it's post-certified. We work through post for this training, and I'm also an advisor to post, and I have been for the last 25 years. I'm in and out of police departments doing this work. And part of our training is hate crimes training, where we focus specifically on hate crimes that are specific to Muslim Americans, such as using dogs to intimidate. Using dogs to intimidate. Why would a person be intimidated by a dog? Well, it just so happens, if you remember Abu Ghraib case in Iraq, you'll know why. You know, pulling off a woman's scarf. If you don't know anything about hijab, you wouldn't, you know, it's an assault, but why is it a hate crime? Right? Bacon wrapped around the door handle of Muslim institutions and so forth. And so these are the kinds of things that I think law enforcement needs, that's very specific to a community, what is considered a hate crime. They probably can recognize you know, the problem with the swastika, or some of the things that might be associated with African Americans, but they're not with other communities. And we're now one of the most culturally and ethnically diverse counties in the country. And so, you know, if the county wanted to empower the community and to really be effective in this area of law enforcement, I'm not sure why we're only talking about law enforcement. Maybe this was the day to talk about law enforcement. But if you really want to empower the community and to be effective with law enforcement, the Network for a Hate-Free Community had its day. It was effective at one time when we were just starting to talk about hate crimes. We're much more sophisticated, much more complex today, and I think that we need something different. I'm happy to give you a proposal. The second thing that I want you to think about is, regardless of all the hate crime training that Post has put out, you walk into a typical police department, the vast majority of police officers don't have any clue, not only on what it is, but why is that important? What's the big deal? Everything is a hate crime as far as they're concerned, right? And so you have to go through the process of explaining why it's important to investigate. It doesn't just affect one person, it affects an entire community. Then we go into effective investigations, where communication with the community is incredibly important. I think it was Samina who pointed out the importance of trust and rapport in order to elicit information from the community, because that's the only way that they're going to investigate it. Before it gets to Jay's office, it has to be filed. It has to be filed. Jay's office only gets what's actually filed. All of the stuff is happening that isn't recognized, let alone properly investigated by working with the community. and and investigate it and then actually document it before it gets to Jay's office. And we also use case studies to have them role play and do exercises and case studies. You want to be effective in this area, you've got to have a panel of community experts that goes in and out of police departments to do this work, because that's the only way that they're gonna identify it, investigate it properly, develop relationships with the community to make it matter so that it gets to Jay's office.
Thank you, Maha. I don't see any other comments in this item. So Otto, I'll just go back to you to see if you had any last comments and on this item or the last one.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. First of all, yeah, so thanks so much for both the Sheriff's Office and the DA's office for the report on both items 5 and 6 from the early referral. What we, my envisioning was that wanting to make sure that the issue of hate crimes is something that our law enforcement agencies and our prosecutors are taking it very seriously. Going backwards, it's certainly very good to learn from Jay's presentation that our county district attorney's office clearly has been a leader on this area, along with, as you mentioned, Karen Sununu Tari, who has been the one who wrote the book on it. And this is something that is being used to teach other counties as well. So that's certainly music to my ears that we know that our county has been doing a good job. As to Jay's recommendation regarding the network, I think we could probably look into potentially what is something that we could reconstitute to do, because it certainly helps to have our communities to be better connected with our law enforcement agencies and the DA's office as well, to make sure these information can be given and shared in a periodic manner. I don't think we should really only be a time of crisis when something bad happens, then the parties talk together. I mean, one specific incident I remember was I got a contact from Samina about a few months ago regarding incident of the hijab not being properly provided on somebody who was initially dealing with the law enforcement, and eventually it got resolved. But I think these are the type of issues that would be much better handled if the community has better trust and relationship. So I do hope that this type of a network that Jay has talked about, we could maybe Dr. Smith, we could go back and see if we could get something like that to work with. I understand the social justice and equity. I think certainly it's great that we have this new model, but having the ongoing meeting, I think it's something that could be good. So maybe Dr. Smith, you can come back to us what is this committee or the board to suggest the next step of making that happen. I really appreciate it. Regarding the issue of increasing the number of law enforcement personnel to specifically handle the hate crimes unit, my understanding here is the sheriff's office is asking to see if we could increase to maybe 1.5 to 2 individuals, because currently right now only we have one detective sergeant that's handling this part-time as the hate crime unit, which I certainly do believe is not sufficient. The area of coverage is very different. I think Jay is absolutely right. The big dog in the county regarding hate crime is, of course, the largest department being San Jose Police Department. However, for the county, we do cover certainly in terms of area, land area, we're the biggest. For example, we have 22 county parks, and we of course have various contracted cities like City of Cupertino, as mentioned, which of course is also one that's a very high number of Asian and Chinese Americans living there. So I certainly am concerned about that. So I don't want to necessarily say yes or no this moment. I certainly would like to learn more to see if that need is still there. I certainly want to maybe have the Sheriff's Department to come back with a more concrete proposal of what it would look like if these are the increases that the Sheriff's Office believes is needed to focus on the hate crime issues. Because certainly with the large area of unincorporated areas, the parks, and some of these contracted areas, half a deputy to handle all the hate crimes issues seems to be quite inadequate. So those are the thinking I have. And one other idea I think Supervisor Chavez was also considering was having our task force that we have looked at earlier to consider these. I think would be certainly be a good idea in terms of the future need of the issues of the law enforcement. So anyways, I just want to make sure that's being said. And in addition, of course, I did mention regarding the LA County having that page, and I'll be happy to forward that later through our staff regarding what the other counties have been doing to get better information out there to our community to help report the hate crime online and get responded to. So I would forward that separately as well. Thank you, Chair Chavez.
Thank you, Otto. That's a lot of really good information. I think just one recommendation that you touched on, I think the direction you're giving is to have the sheriffs flesh out their idea a bit more and having the staff come back with what the Network for Hate, the Hate-Free Communities actually did, what its functional purpose was. And I think, Maha, I appreciate that you, and there's probably some others who were part of that. So I think being able to understand what that was and, your point about what may be different about the times we're in now relative to that community response is important. What I would ask is that through the working groups just to reinforce what Supervisor Lee just raised, to make sure that any proposals that come from the Sheriff's Office or the District Attorney's Office, and even our staff's research on the network, if we could get those through the committee, because I think it'd be great if those committees could hear those ideas. And I would just say to Supervisor Lee's point that if any of the committees or any of our colleagues here can give us feedback faster, we don't have to wait till December. I don't think we need things to come back in a package. That said, if there are recommendations that folks would like to make, I think that would be really important. One other idea I just wanted to raise as it relates to how law enforcement addresses this is that, one of the issues that I'm just becoming more and more mindful of is that we have done some joint operations and joint work together as a county. And I've been curious about whether or not the reason we can't get to scale on having investigators who are experts in dealing with hate crimes is that we're trying to do something department by department that may make more sense to do regionally, like countywide. And I would just, I know we have the Chief of Chiefs on, Chief Berg. I don't know if he's still with us, but I know he was here earlier. Oh, there you are. That I think this may be really worth the District Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Office and Chief Berg having a conversation about whether or not this is one of those areas that it makes sense for us to pool resources so that we have a better opportunity of getting expertise in investigation, and really, I think one issue is having the departments really be able to have a shared response. And again, I don't know if that's even a real possibility, just given how siloed we are, but I think it's worth us thinking about whether or not there should be something that's cross-jurisdictional that may be something we want to take a look at. I would ask you all to consider that, have those conversations in the committee, and frankly, with people who have the expertise to help us think about whether or not that's an option. So thank you, colleagues, for a really robust discussion. And Supervisor Lee, he's only been on the board for an hour and he's like whipping out these ideas, and we just really super appreciate that. So thank you for that. And we'll look forward to learning more. And like I said, if we can get these reports and Kathy Wong, if we can get those just coordinated through committees, I think that would be helpful. And, Maha and others who, have recommendations, feel free to send those directly to our offices, and we'll share them with the committees, but also so that Supervisor Lee and I and Supervisor Esparza, Councilmember Esparza, have access to them too as they're thinking about what's happening in each of our jurisdictions. All right, with that, we are adjourned until October 22nd at 11 a.m., although we're going to do a ton of work between now and then. So nobody kick up your heels because we're going to do lots of community meetings. And I'm more than happy just to remind you that we need volunteers, 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 and names of people who you'd like to volunteer on their behalf. And then we will follow up with them. Thank you all. Be well and be safe. Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a blessed weekend.
Recording stopped.